is near.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the studio with us today, I'm going to allow DB, as he's lost sleep this entire week, knowing that these guys were going to be here this morning to do the honors.
Ladies and gentlemen, the directors of a movie with a budget of over $320 million has now made, in 1 week, $857 million worldwide. It is the second highest grossing film of 2018 behind Black Panther, and in its opening weekend, it grossed $641 million. Anthony and Joe Russo, the directors of Avengers: Infinity War.
But in case you don't know their legacy,
Captain America: Civil War, Captain America: Winter Soldier, and they even got a shot from our good friend Ron Howard to direct the pilot of Arrested Development.
That's right.
So they got some pretty cool friends.
yes. Welcome them to the show, Anthony and Joe Russo, ladies and gentlemen. Wow.
Thanks for having us,
you.
guys.
Man, I can't even believe you guys are here.
We're excited.
You're more important than the characters that are in this movie, bro. You know, and if you only have one flaw, there's only one flaw I have to say about you guys.
Yeah.
It's that you're from Cleveland.
Is that
And I'm from Oakland. Yeah, you know what I mean? Warriors, Cavs, that whole thing, man.
That's the best thing we got going for us.
What's the fact that you're from Cleveland? Oh, okay, cool. You guys are into this basketball thing? I know you're busy right now. Yeah?
Oh, yeah, we've been we're pretty intense in our loyalty to Cleveland sports teams. It's been a very painful life following Cleveland sports.
Yeah. Up until recently,
No,
I mean,
that was-
I mean, let me ask you. I mean, could LeBron have easily been one of the superheroes in this movie?
Easily,
Right?
easily,
Right?
yes.
Okay.
He seems to be carrying them right now. So
Yeah.
let's see how this plays out.
Yeah. Well, Heather says that he probably has something in his blood.
Vibranium. I'm
Yeah.
just going with vibranium in LeBron's blood. The NBA can't detect it every time it's time for them
I mean,
to test it.
he looks like he's playing better than he's ever played.
I agree.
Yeah.
He's
I agree.
so dimensional. His game's so dimensional right now. It's amazing. I
Yeah.
don't know how he does it. Him and Brady, it's like, whether it's the diet or what they're doing, but it's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you guys. All these amazing actors: Chris Hemsworth, Robert Downey Jr., Mark Ruffalo, Scarlett Johansson, Chris Evans, Chadwick Boseman, a good friend of ours. Zoe's been here. Everybody on this list, as Anthony Mackie, they've all been on this show at one point or another. People have made a big, deal about how much of the budget was that you got for a film like this. Can you break it down? How does this works behind the scene on the back end? How do you determine where funds are appropriated? Is it towards effects? Is it towards salary? Does a movie studio pay these things? How does that
The
work?
cast gets all.
We just give, we give most of it to Downey.
To Downey?
Yeah.
Is that what happens? So, how do you budget a film of this magnitude?
I mean, it does break down that way where the cast does get a big percentage of it. These movies have been incredibly successful. Mm-hmm. There's 18 of them, and and typically as movies succeed, casts get more expensive. The VFX are incredibly expensive on a movie like this. Well into the hundreds of millions. So between those two, those are the largest categories that take most of the money. And then there's just the day-to-day running of a production that can be very expensive, especially with these two movies. We shot for a year straight from January to January with about 2 weeks in between. So you're spending on average, I don't know, $350,000, $400,000, $450,000, $450,000 just a day, just to keep the production running. So you think of that tab.
Wow.
How embarrassing is it if you go over budget and then you have to
a movie
ask
like
the
this?
studio, we need more money?
We did go over
That's
budget.
the irony is no matter how much money you have, at some point you run out of money.
Right.
All right. So it's
Wow.
it's pretty crazy.
So we gave you hundreds of millions and you still need more.
How do you celebrate? I'm just curious. When we had, as we mentioned, we had Ryan Coogler here and the entire cast of Black Panther. When we saw them, they looked exhausted, happy, but exhausted. And how do you celebrate with the numbers, obviously, but then you get the call that we're going to do this movie? When do you get to say, high five, we did it, let's go to Bahamas and get naked? I don't know what
Maybe a year and a half from now. It really is like a sprint to the finish, these movies. I mean, we started them in 2016. There were 2 of them back to back, 2 of the most expensive movies ever made. Shot them back to back, had to prep them, write them, edit them. We finished shooting in January, raced into the edit room to finish Infinity War, handed it off to Disney on April 7th, said, here's the movie. Got on a plane and then went to Mexico City and London and Edinburgh and Seoul, Korea and Tokyo and Shanghai and literally lapped the world and are just ending here. So we even haven't even had a moment to process it. But that's why I think they all looked exhausted when they came in to see it, because these press tours are intense and they take you all over the world.
I'll tell you that we go to Cleveland this weekend. That's where we always end our press tours. And
Whatever.
Is game Saturday night?
on Monday morning, we start bright and early with our editor in the edit room working on the next Avenger movie. So
Wow.
we are we're right into it.
Sleep. So when you come up with these storylines, because all these characters have their own storylines, and do you borrow from, Heather mentioned Ryan Coogler and Black Panther, for continuity of James Gunn with Guardians of the Galaxy? Do you borrow for continuity from those movies previously shot, or how do you?
You have to. I mean, I think that's part of the process is that we're all handing story off to each other. But I think what the audience loves about these movies is that there's different authors for each film, and that our interpretation of Captain America is very different than Joss Whedon's interpretation of Captain America. And Taika Waititi's interpretation of Thor is very different than Kenneth Branagh's. So I think the audience likes the evolution, and they like to be surprised, and they see it go in different directions. If a movie exists, it's easy for us to watch it the same way you do and understand the storytelling and the narrative of it and how to carry that forward. If something's being shot concurrently, which Black Panther was, and Ryan was in Atlanta with us, we were across town from each other. So we were driving over there all the time to sit down with him because he's building out this incredible world, and just hearing about the characters that he's bringing into it and where he's going with it thematically and what the tone of it is. Those sorts of things are very important to us while we're working on the film, especially because Wakanda plays such a big part in our movie.
Ryan Coogler, man, as a young director, film writer, the whole nine, you guys been in the business for a minute. What do you think of this guy?
He's amazing.
Love him.
He is beyond one of the nicest, greatest human beings you'll meet, and an incredibly talented director. I mean, just think about his age and what he's accomplished at his age. It's staggering, and that movie is just it's perhaps the most groundbreaking film that we've seen in movies in decades.
Hey, you guys by any chance know where Ryan's from?
Oh yeah.
Let's put that out there, fellas. I just want to put that out there.
We've heard.
You've heard, right? So you're shooting year round. If an actor is sick or something happens, how does that affect your schedule?
It gets a little crazy, but look, and those things do happen. The only people that can't get sick are Joe and I. So it's, but yeah, we change things around. Look, even though this is a huge cast and these are among the biggest movie stars in the business, they all came to the table on this movie knowing that's what's special about this movie is the fact that they're all coming together. So everybody approached it in a very collaborative energy. They're like, we know we gotta do things differently on this movie to make it work.
Okay.
And so people were very flexible. People were very giving of their time, very supportive of their other cast members and my brother and I. So it was a really communal effort to pull off a very difficult movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tracy?
You don't hear a lot about director duos. So I'm wondering, Aunt Joe, how do you guys divide the work amongst you two? Like, what are the different roles you guys play?
We try not to divide it because we think that the two minds are better than one, and we like to have both our brains on everything. And part of our process is just arguing out ideas. It's a little bit like a high school debate club. They put us in a room, especially when we're working with the writers of all these films for us, Christopher Marcus and Steve McFeely, and it's hilarious. I mean, it's just like everybody's arguing with each other about, what the best path through the story, what the best idea is for the story, which character should interact with which character, and we do this for months on end. So our process is really just trying to keep the two of us together all the time and keeping our brains on everything. Now, obviously, it doesn't always happen because these movies are so complicated. It's helpful that there are two of us and we can divide and conquer on some things, but for the most part, we try to stay together.
In music, a lot of times, if there's a duo or a group, like one person wants to go solo for like an album or something like that. Do you guys have thoughts about that? Like, yo, I just want to do this one to myself.
A part of what was beneficial about our TV career is that we spent a lot of time. We would do the pilots together for the shows that we did. So we did Arrested Development, community show called Happy Endings, but we direct the episodes separately. That's a period where it's easier for us to not direct together because we've already established what the tone of the show is, what the look of the show is. We've cast it. So it's easier for us to split up and cover more ground.
And we were also both producing the show at the same time, so we're still, we still had that connection to each episode and all that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Who's the big brother?
Guess.
Yeah,
I already. Spoiler! As soon as you turned, I did that. Yeah.
Hey, I like that. Hey, with that devilish grin.
I got more kids, so I look older.
Oh no, man! I wouldn't say that.
It's only a year difference.
Just a year difference. Okay. I'm the younger brother. 2-year difference, man.
Oh yeah. Could you work with your brother?
Absolutely. Fucking no. I could do any. Yeah, I love my brother, man. I love to work with him. He's and he's bossy, and I like that about. Is he bossy, bro?
We're not. No, I might be the boss.
You might be the bossy one. Oh no, my brother has a very strong personality, but he's a very creative guy. So I trust his instincts more than I trust my own.
That's cool. Good. Yeah, we always get the reaction. Yeah. Either people look at us and go, "Oh man, I wish I could work with my brother, my sister," or they're like, "Oh man, I could never ever work with my brother."
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to. DB, go ahead.
I want to get your input on Martin Scorsese recently came out to say his thoughts about Rotten Tomatoes and the websites that they rate these movies before they even come out, and so a lot of people look at these sites where critics or whoever, or even just people who users who go on the site and they say, "Okay, we thought it was this, and maybe it's not good, or it is." Do you think that hurts a film? People using that judgment in order to base whether they want to go see it or not?
I mean, it's part of our culture now. Is that like everybody wants things like, diluted down to the simplest form. And because social media drives conversations, it's like what does everybody think? Mm-hmm. Certainly, it can hurt movies. I mean, I think that it is dangerous. It's overly simplifying an approach to a movie, and I don't know. Is a collective always right about judging content? So I do think people have to think for themselves and go see movies for themselves and make their own decisions. But it is and it's an aggregate score, so it's like I don't know how can you judge? So what was Scorsese's? What do you say about it?
It was the whole tomato scale. You know what I mean? Like the rotten, or is it fresh and things like that. So it's like people look at that like, oh well, if it's rotten, that must mean the movie sucks. But you didn't even go see it for yourself,
right?
So it's kind of what you were saying, like make up your own mind rather than just let somebody tell you or not.
For sure.
I have an 8-year-old boy, and literally the first thing out of his mouth about a movie is always, "What is its Rotten Tomato score?" Mm-hmm. He just watches. He's obsessed with it.
Yeah. Character development. Who was the hardest to really develop, or what? And for this particular storyline?
Well, some of the characters. One of the things that excited us most about this character is that this movie is that Thanos is the villain in the film. He drives the film. We really designed the whole movie around him in many ways. And with villains always get most interesting when the hero or the protagonist has a very personal relationship with them. That's what we loved about making Winter Soldiers. You had Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes, who are best friends, are now enemies. In this movie, we had 2 children of Thanos in Gamora and Nebula, two of the Guardians. So we really ran at that idea that they have a malignant father-daughter relationship, and especially with the relationship between Thanos and Gamora. Not to get into the story too much.
Don't do too much. Okay, I haven't seen it yet.
But that was a very difficult road for Zoe to play. She's such an amazing actress. She's a really brave actress, and we went to some very difficult places in that relationship. And I think it took a lot of sensitive work to get everybody there. But Josh and her are such amazing performers; they really went for it, and it's part of our favorite things in the movie. Yeah.
Okay.
After watching this movie, it dawned on me how whether it's Thanos, whether it's Ultron, whoever the Killmonger, the villain may have an idea in their head that they may go about the wrong way, but in a way, there's still a little bit of sense to what their goal is. Right, even if it's like some evil master plan, Thanos does make a point of, I'm not going to say what it is, but when you see the movie, you'll see in a way, he's kind of right. how do you come up with those plans and execute it to where somebody might see the sense in it but still not completely agree with them?
Well, so typically you look for an idea that you understand, and that, like I said, there's 4 of us in a room arguing that we all understand. We sit there and go, that's a noble idea. Typically, where villains go wrong is that it involves killing people, and it involves, it involves destruction and mayhem as a way to achieve their means, rather than some sort of, spiritual approach or, healing approach to the concept. So, he does want to bring balance to the universe. That's a noble cause. But by murdering a large portion of it is the really shitty part of it.
But the weird thing about Thanos is I think he thinks of himself as a servant. It's not about ego for him. He's literally going to sacrifice to bring balance to the universe, to make the universe a better place, and he's willing to sacrifice everything he is to do that. And again, he doesn't. You don't see him. You don't see him kill. He only kills in furtherance of that goal. He's very disciplined and focused to what he wants. And there is something ennobling about that, Or
views himself as like a holy warrior.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A holy warrior. All right, I got to go to these phone lines, man. Anthony and Joe Russo are here, ladies and gentlemen. This is big. They're the directors of Avengers, Infinity War. When you call up, there are a lot of people who have yet to see the movie.
That's right.
Believe it or not. So don't give away too much when you call and ask these questions.
Yeah, no spoilers.
No spoilers. Okay, we got James from Chicago on the line. James, what up?
Hey, good morning, Sway DB.
Good morning.
I just want to say I really enjoyed that movie. I was hurt. I was very emotional at the end of that movie. I almost cried. But also, I read something yesterday that I think the Russos wrote that said that the next movie doesn't do what we think it does. That the sooner we accept what happened and move on, the better it'll be. Is that true?
The next movie doesn't do what we think it does.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about it because but
it's so specific to the ending and what he's talking about.
We will say this, that obviously Thanos is a very formidable villain, and to beat Thanos it will come at a very high cost. We're committed to stakes. We believe in stakes. It's really, we like to shake up the Marvel Universe. We had a big game changer at the end of Winter Soldier. We had a big game changer at the end of Civil War, a big game changer at the end of Infinity War, and obviously there'll be a big game changer at the end of Avengers 4.
You got to see the movie, Sway. Don't even.
What did you just say to us? What does that mean? One of my childhood heroes won't be? All right, man. I am Black Panther. Just want to let you know that, bro. All right, John in Connecticut. Go ahead.
John.
Yo, what's going on, Sway? What's going on, everybody?
What's happening?
Hey, man.
Not much. Hey, first and foremost, love the show. Love you guys. I've been a citizen for years. Now, as far as these Russo brothers that I've come to love as my own brothers.
Thank you. That's very sweet.
I am a huge Marvel guy. Met Stan Lee with my son a few years back. Like, I've been into this forever, and what you guys have been able to do is like something I've been waiting for since I was a kid. And my real question I got to you guys is, because I've seen the movie like 3 times. Thanos, my favorite villain of all time in the comics. You guys killed it on the silver screen. Josh Brolin's amazing. Everybody's amazing. But my question is, how did you guys come to, especially with the lack of being able to use every character, because like I know the whole story, like even with all the way back to Civil War, and how there are so many more characters that are involved. With Infinity War, how did you guys come to the decision to like give the certain characters like their screen time versus the other screen time? Like how'd you guys do it? I mean,
That's a good question.
You guys literally made a masterpiece.
Oh, thank you, man. It's very nice.
Yeah, we basically, for Joe and I, we love these characters. We have a huge history with them like you do, that goes back to our childhood. And we've loved everything that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done since the very first Iron Man. So we are all in on these characters. And we just basically look at everything that guides us as story. And it's like, when we sat down to figure out what Infinity War was, we sat in a room like this and we put every picture on the wall of every single character that ever appeared in the MCU. And that was our starting point.
Wow.
And it was a little overwhelming for a while because there are so many possibilities. There's so many different places you can go. But, it's again, like Joe was talking before, we just sit in a room with Marcus McFeely and we just start to tell each other stories. And we just start to grab certain characters. And pretty soon a thread starts to develop. And then once that thread develops, we just start to build things around that thread. And what we ran at in this movie is like, what are the richest character moments? Because these movies are big spectacles. They're, and people love them for the spectacle. But I think the thing that audiences love about these movies is the character moments. And I think that's what's true for Joe and I as well. So really, what we did is we ran at the most rich character relationships and most rich character conflict we could figure out, and that was like mentioning before, that was Thanos Gamora was very rich. Thor was an interesting place at the beginning of this movie in the sense that at the end of Ragnarok, and I can talk about that movie because it's been out for so long, but it's he had basically lost his planet. It's like Thor was in a place where he was losing everything. And who is he when he after everything is gone? It's a very interesting place to pick up a story for a character. So we would run at these sort of the most complex, rich character tensions that we had in the story. That's basically how we found our way through.
Well, that's amazing, and maybe consider this when you shooting your next movie, and
which comes out the day after my birthday next year.
Oh wow!
Okay, great. The hell just happened right there. Okay, that when you talk about the MCU, Marvel's Comics universe, that Heather B and I are a part of the MCU because we were featured in the Luke Cage series.
Oh yeah,
wow.
that's right.
So Sway, Heather B, you writing that next script.
We got to put your picture on the wall.
I'm just saying, put our pictures on the wall, baby.
We're Universe Media.
Okay, in season 2 is coming. I can't reveal anything. You know how they are. You can lose your life.
Oh, that's right. The snipers are watching us.
Oh my gosh, they are. And then secondly, man, what does it feel like? I mean, just think of your childhood till now, just to be, part of the biggest, highest grossing film in history, man.
Wow.
What?
It's a crazy journey, and I don't know if it'll ever sink in. It's weird because you kind of, separate yourself from your, what's happening sometimes. And the good news is we haven't had any time to just step back and absorb it. We've been relentlessly out there promoting the movie. So maybe at some point when we get a break after Avengers 4, we'll sit back and look at it. But
that road you tell, our very first movie that was ever came out commercially was called Welcome to Collinwood, neighborhood in Cleveland.
Yes. Oh.
And it was that movie. I think we made that movie for maybe $7 million or so, and that movie made about $300,000 in U.S. box office. So,
wow.
It's like knowing that that's where we started. It's been a long road.
Well, congratulations, man, Anthony and Joe, man. Russo, man. Hey, congratulations, man. Please come back anytime. I hope you enjoy your stay here. Absolutely.
You guys are awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. Thank you, man.
Thanks, everybody.
They're very welcome. And I'm seeing it this weekend. So, all right. We got Celebrity Wire up next. Wayne the Morning Shade 4-5.
Just make sure them drums are smacking.